Hiya, thanks for joining me today. This is Amy from Amy's Wares, and I have a stenciled shape card to share with you today. Now, this is the Fierce Wave stencil. This is a 6x9. It's one of the new stencils in the June release. Put some pixie spray on the back of it, and I'm also going to use this brand new Chasing the Sun stamp set, also from the new release, as well as some of these beautiful colors from Catherine Pooler for my ink blending. So I'm going to show you a couple photos of the finished card to let you know the direction that we're headed, but this really came together quite quickly and created a fun shaped card design to share with a loved one. So you can see on the inside of the card I have some additional stamping, but I'm going to show you how I made this. So I have the pixie spray. As you can see, there's some slats on this stencil and the kind of detailed bits that are likely going to pop up on you if you try an ink blend. So this is definitely the sort of stencil that you would want to use a temporary adhesive like pixie spray. So I brayered it down right onto a card panel. This is US A2 size, 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I'm doing the ink blending with my blending brushes from the Rabbit Hole Designs directly onto a card panel of 120-pound accent opaque. And I will link all the products that I used in the video description box below. If you expand and scroll down, you'll find all those details. And if you do shop for anything at a Colorful Life Designs, be sure to use my coupon AMYFAN10 and you'll save 10% on your complete order. So this release is chock full of not only gorgeous, unique stencils, but there's actually 2 stamp sets in this release. So be sure to check out the rest. I will link my playlist as well below. I create a playlist every month, which will feature all of the products that I made with that particular release. So you'll find this video as well as others throughout the month of June to kind of showcase these new products. So here I'm just going to carefully pull back the stencil and reveal this amazing detail on the card. So I have a card base here. This is 120-pound accent opaque, and I have these nested arch-shaped dies from scrapbook.com. This is what I'm going to use to create my shape card. So this outside one is almost exactly the size of A2. It would really kind of come up to the edge. So I thought I would go slightly smaller just so it'd be easier to die cut. And you can see I'm kind of deliberately kicking the top of that arch off over the fold of my top fold card base. This is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, but again, I want that fold to remain because that's what's going to hold the front and the back of the shape card together. Now, you probably don't want this top flat part of the arch to show, even though it stands up nice. You don't want that part to show on the front of the card. So I'm going to remove this mint tape, but this is where the beauty comes in. Then you take your stenciled panel or your decorative panel, whatever you're creating, and then you do the full die cut. So you can attach that full piece to the front of the card, and then you'll no longer see the fold on the back. So here you can see I went right to the top and then thought, oh, wait a minute, I don't want adhesive there because that's where the fold is and there's not going to be any cards. So I just quickly came in with my adhesive eraser and removed my tape runner from that top part of the arch. Now it lines up perfectly with the card base. It shows the full arch, and then it still connects beautifully to the card base. So here I'm going to stamp on the inside of the card. I want to use one of these new awesome ocean themed sentiments, and then I'm going to stamp that with the same ink color that I used to ink blend on the front of the card, just so it'll match perfectly. But have this loaded up in my mini Misty. I'm just going to condition it with my hand because I haven't used this before. This is how you can get the kind of manufacturer's seal or goo off of the front of your stamp so that they give you a more even impression. So here I'm just going to stamp it down. It says "Stay Wild, Ocean Child." I think that's such a fun, unique sentiment. But here on the front, I'm trying to figure out how I want the sentiment because it's kind of a busy background and it's not really going to stand out. I knew I wanted to heat emboss, but I didn't want to warp the card base that I just made, and I also was a little worried that it wouldn't stand out quite enough. So here comes the vellum. This is where I decided to do the heat embossing directly on a piece of vellum, just to kind of give it a little bit of separation from the background of the busy stenciling. So I have this little strip of vellum. I used my embossing tool from the Rabbit Hole designs. This is going to make it so that the embossing powder only sticks to where I'm stamping and not to anywhere else. So like anything left over, like from oils on your fingers or things like that, you'll want to use some sort of embossing tool. And I stamped it with a clear, sticky embossing ink, and I'm coating it with sterling colored embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. So this is going to give it a beautiful silvery finish once I hit it with my heat tool, but it's done right on the vellum. So this is what I'm using to kind of help it stand out a little bit on the front of the card. So I'm just going to coat it a couple times just to make sure I have nice even coverage. You can see I kind of got a little crazy, and I bent that vellum. I don't know what I was thinking, so there's a little bit of a crease, but I think I ended up trimming that part off, so it ended up okay. But I am going to hit it with my heat tool. Now with vellum, you want it to get, you want your heat tool to be nice and piping hot, because you want to kind of move over the vellum and not stay in the same place. You don't want to kind of warp it too much. You don't want to melt it. So you can see I'm kind of hitting it and then pulling back, hitting it and then pulling back. So the way to kind of help yourself in that case is let your heat tool get nice and warmed up. Let it get nice and hot before you bring it to the vellum. Now I have the chore of figuring out how I can attach this. Now, had I thought about it, since I was attaching that panel directly to a card base, if I would have planned ahead, I could have made that vellum long enough and then wrapped it behind the ink blended panel before I attached it to the card base. And then it would have been secure on the back and I wouldn't have had to do anything on the front. But since I didn't think ahead, here's my solution. So I'm liquid gluing some of these resin droplets down onto the vellum in various key spots, and then also a couple on the card base as well. Now the reason I'm doing that is because then I'm going to use the liquid glue behind these little spots on the resin so that it will kind of help mask the liquid glue, because if you've worked with vellum before, then you know the adhesive will show through. So this was my way of kind of correcting the fact that I didn't really think ahead on how I was going to do this. So if you have some sort of blingage, whether it's like a little sequin or a resin drop like that, or if your words that you've heat embossed are really fat, you can kind of hide some adhesive behind there and attach it to your card that way. So here, this was my solution. It ended up working out okay. Just laid down these resin dots and hid the glue behind there. And then I was able to trim off the excess little pieces of vellum that were hanging off the edge of the card. So this is one option, but like I said, many different ways to do it. If you think ahead, you could easily sandwich the adhesive on the back of your ink blended panel and do it that way. So that's going to finish my card. Like I said, it'll fit perfectly in an A2 size envelope because it's just slightly smaller. With this cool arch shape, it has no problem standing up on its own because of the nice flat bottom. And I just love how it turned out with this new stencil. So be sure to check out the rest of the release. And like I said, use my coupon to save some cash, AmyFan10, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.